You're listening to the Butch Lord Radio Roadshow, the world's first and only touring radio show. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to take you across the country in search of live local original music, in search of live local original comedy, and in search of live local original cool happenings. Interesting people doing interesting things. And we'll interview those people and bring you their stories. And we'll also interview whatever national acts happen to have the good fortune of being in the right place at the right time to catch the Butch Lord Radio Roadshow on tour. Essentially what I'm saying is the Butch Lord Radio Roadshow is going to find the party, and we're going to take you there.
Bring on the sin, let the party begin. I want a wild night, bar fight, whiskey drinking kind of time. Bring on the sin and the long-legged women. And this white trash boy will take you places that you ain't never been.
Yes, I will, Callahan. My white trash ass gonna take you places you ain't never been. Hell, we'll take you to places you haven't been in your own backyard. Because the Butch Lord Radio Roadshow is everywhere. From Wichita, Kansas to New York City. From Jamestown, New York to Chicago, Illinois. And everywhere in between. Finding all the coolest stuff all along the way. From badass untapped bands in Wichita, Kansas to backstage at a Pablo Francisco show at the Gotham Comedy Club in New York City.
I want to throw the kind of party where nobody knows how the strippers got there.
That's what we're doing here, man. Throwing a big-ass party. The Butch Lord Radio Roadshow is a party. But because we're kind of winging the tour thing, and quite honestly, we're a bunch of stoners, things don't always go as planned. Like we show up for a big meeting in New York City and our car gets towed, or I'm interviewing a band at the after party and the cops show up. But hey, our misfortunes are your comedy.
I'm doing something wrong. Bring on the sin. Let the party begin.
Yeah, and the party has begun. That's Butch Lord Radio Roadshow Party. And you can follow this party, of course, on the FM dial in your car, but you can also check us out online at www.butchlord.com.
And this white trash boy will take you places that you ain't never been.
So sit back, fire it up, and crack a cold beer. Get ready for a great trip this week as the Butch Lord Radio Roadshow takes you to Wichita, Kansas, where we found great new music, hilarious new comedy, and really cool stuff happening all over Wichita. From the badass custom motorcycle builders that are Lakota Choppers to catching a nationally touring country band in the Low Cash Cowboys that actually led us to what might be our even cooler find.
Bring on the sin. Let the party begin. I want a wild night, bar fight, whiskey drinking kind of time.
You're actually listening to that cooler find. That would be the Callahan Band. And we also ran into Mr. Brew, another local band. Plus, we talked with local comedians Chris Winslow and Ophelia as the Butch Lord Radio Roadshow tore up Wichita.
So white trash boy will take you places that you ain't never been.
And speaking of white trash boys, it'll take you places you've never been, and not just in the bedroom. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Butch Lord.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe Glarner right there, my producer, Joe Glarner, the other voice of the Butch Lord Radio Roadshow. Some would say the voice of reason.
Oh, dear.
Which is only comforting if you don't actually know the guy.
And you know me.
Right. As do a lot of our listeners, but that was a badass new beginning right there, Joe.
Thanks, man.
We got Joe to thank for all the cool sounds the show comes up with. I go out and get the content, and Joe makes it sound good. And that, my brother, sounded great, man.
Thanks.
That was awesome. We want to start the show today by welcoming our newest affiliate. We have 103.1 The Fox, Jamestown Warren's classic rock.
Don't forget Russell. I grew up in Russell, too.
James,
right in the middle.
Jamestown, Warren, and Russell.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is after being everywhere but here for the last couple of decades, I came back a couple of months ago and I found Joe over here making commercials and cool audio and video for businesses, websites, and their TV and stuff. And I actually needed to hire Joe to make a commercial for me for a show I was doing, and the commercial was for 103.1 The Fox. And after the process of making that commercial and the series of commercials that followed, at some point Joe was like, say, man, would you ever want to do with that radio show you had?
We tried doing that like 8 years ago.
Right.
But you took it to St. Louis. You were down there. You were on satellite, right? Were you syndicated to? What morning show was that on in St. Louis?
That was on the Stephen D.C. morning show. We were on Sirius Satellite and XM, and we were on 40 FM stations.
Yeah, I was just waiting for someone to drop you so I could do it again. I was like,
well, it didn't take long.
No, well, they just didn't want to do what the show should really do. And the thing was is travel with you.
And that's the thing is we were in all those markets, 40 FM markets, and we were never actually in the market physically. And I thought, what a waste. You know, we needed to get the show out there on the road. If you're going to be listening to us in Wichita, we want to come to Wichita. If you're going to be listening to us in New York City, we want to come to New York City. Everywhere. And that's the point. We wanted the show to go everywhere.
Well, you've been a comedy veteran over 20 years, and so it's really easy to book a traveling radio roadshow.
Ixnay on the Enti Tway.
Did I give away your age?
Yeah. Dang it.
Which is almost that.
Yeah, I started doing comedy when I was 2. So the idea is that we get out there amongst them and we follow my comedy tour. That's how we find the cities. Wherever my comedy's going, that's where we're going. Now, how we find the stuff, that kind of, it actually tends to find us. I don't know how that happens. But it just, we don't really look for it so much as we're open to finding it, you know? For example, I get into Wichita and I'm at the Greyhound station. Surprise! Yeah. And we're not high dollar. We're not flying in. But we come in on the Greyhound and I'm hopping a cab there and I jump a cab from a couple of cats, man, because it looked like a very Butch-friendly cab. Big biker cat in there, you know what I mean? I'd be able to smoke in there. Plus I could have a cigarette afterwards. And so yeah, I jump in the cab and he's like, where to? And I'm like, Looney Bin, man. And he's like, Looney Bin, wait a minute. You're the comedian dude they were just talking about. And it's the, he was just listening on T95 and he heard Hank the Mechanic talking about I was coming in the studio the next day and that I was the biker comic that was playing this week out of the Looney Bin. And he's like telling me he's a big biker guy and we get one thing leads to another. And as he's dropping me off, the dude's like, well, hey, man, let me give you some reading material. And he tosses me a couple of biker rags. And it was really cool because the cover of one of them had this really badass chopper on it. It was an Indian-themed chopper built like, and when I say chopper, I'm talking about like an Orange County Choppers kind of custom bike. But it had this Indian theme, like there was the gas tank was an Indian headdress, you know? And the feathers are made out of like aluminum, sheet metal. It's just amazing, and it's all painted in the artwork. Buckskin seats, you know, horns for the foot pegs, and even had a peace pipe. It was a sweet bike, man. And then I read the article and I found out the cat's from Wichita. And I'm like, oh, dude, I gotta call this guy, you know? So I called the cat for an interview, and he was, I gotta be honest, a little skeptical at first because I was a comedian, you know, I'm playing the Looney Bin, I got this radio show, and he doesn't want me poking fun at his heritage, and it's really dear to his heart. He's very active in the Lakota community, and so he takes it really serious, and he didn't want me making fun of his bike, but I'm like, no way, dude, I love this thing, man. I actually want to see it, man. Can I come see it? So he invited me out to the garage to meet me, and wanted to find out what I was about too. So we met out there, and I saw some of his other bikes, and it was amazing. And so he actually took me out to his house to see the Indian bike after we met, and we're hanging out for a second. And we went out to his house. It was a great time. The bike looked awesome in person. I can't even tell you. Go to the website, butchlord.com, see a 360 view of that bike. It is a great piece of art. And then the story behind it, because like I said, he's active in the community of the Lakota Indians and in all Native Americans. And this bike is being dedicated at a ceremony at the Crazy Horse Monument at Mount Rushmore. And then on top of that, before that, they're going to take it and ride it into Sturgis with the Lakota tribe in warrior gear, all on choppers and just walking it down the main street. And he invited us to go, man, to take the Butch Lord Radio Roadshow to Sturgis and walk that bike in, man. We're so stoked because, of course, we said, hell yeah. Here we go. So we're going to take and go up to Sturgis with these cats. And when we got to meet Troy Vargas, that's the guy who builds the bikes. When we finally got to meet Troy, like I said, and we hung out, he's a great guy. We actually ended up going to some drag races. So after hanging out with the cat at his house and finding out the whole story of how much he's doing with his community and how he's donating this bike and his whole story, it was just amazing. And so we wanted to do an interview with him. So we actually had Troy on the phone right here in studio. Let's go to that right here. We're going to talk with Troy Vargas from Lakota Choppers.
The Butch Lord Radio Roadshow is a Glarner Group production, produced right here in Frewsburg, New York.